Welcome back. It's good to see you again. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about why I practice a 10,000-year-old spiritual tradition. So stay tuned and we'll explore that together. Before we get started, let's call upon our ancestors, as I always do. My ancestors and your ancestors, those who prepared the way for us, those who made it possible for us to be here today. Remember, your ancestors were survivors. They survived all the calamities that have befallen the earth. Had they not survived, you wouldn't be here today. So you're the descendant of survivors. We're all the descendants of survivors. And so we have that DNA and that strength within us. Let's call upon our ancestors, your ancestors and my ancestors, to be with us today, to inspire us and to direct us, to provide us with the strength that we need to survive in this troubled world. And let's call upon Mother Earth, Pachamama, who supports and nourishes us, and Father Sky, Inti Taita, who illuminates us with warmth and with light, and the helping spirits, the spirits of land, the spirits of nature, the Apus, the spirits of mountains and strong places, to inspire us and guide us and direct us in all that we do. I'm frequently asked why I practice a 10,000-year-old spiritual tradition, and if I'm in a flippant mood, then my response is usually to reply with another question, and I ask the individual why they practice a 2,000-year-old Middle Eastern spiritual or religious practice. The major religions of today are old spiritual traditions that come primarily from the Middle East. Buddhism and Hinduism come from the Indian subcontinent, and they're quite a bit older. But the predominant religions, at least in my part of the world, are 2,000-year-old Middle Eastern religions. I don't practice a 2,000-year-old Middle Eastern religion. I practice a religion that goes back at least 10,000, probably 12,000 years, to the end of the last ice age, and because those who survived the ice age are my ancestors, that tradition probably goes back a lot farther than that. There's a big difference between religions today and between shamanism. If you go to church on Sunday, you learn about God. You learn about the divine. If you practice shamanism, you don't learn about something. You develop a relationship with the divine. You develop a relationship with helping spirits, the spirits of nature, the spirits of the underworld, the upper world, the middle world. And it's a give and take relationship where we learn from them and they help us. But it's a practice of experience, not a practice of knowledge. We don't become shamans by reading about it in a book. We become shamans or shamanic practitioners by practicing, by developing relationships with spirit. It was Mark Twain, I believe, and I'll paraphrase him because I haven't memorized the quote, who said, "Faith is believing something, forcing yourself to believe something that you know ain't true." We don't have to have faith in shamanism because we know. Knowledge replaces faith. And knowledge comes from our experiences working with the spirits of nature, the Apus, the spirits of the mountains and the strong places. Buddha was traveling through India once and came across the town called Kesapata. And the villagers in the town came to him and said, "Wise person, every time a wise guy comes through town, he tells us that his practice is the only true practice and that we should forget everything that we've been told before and practice religion his way." And we're sort of tired of that because it leaves us really confused and we don't know what to do. And so they asked the Buddha, "What should we do?" And he gave them 5 little tests, and I think they're great tests because they apply to shamanism just like they did 2,500 years ago. The first test is just because it was written down doesn't mean that it's true. There are lots of things that have been written down and believed for centuries that turned out not to be true. So the fact that something is written down doesn't mean it's true. It just means that it's been written down. He said, don't believe something just because it's old. Just because it's old means it's been around for a long time. Age isn't a measure of truthfulness. And so just because something is tradition doesn't mean that it's the right tradition or that it's true. So don't believe something because it's been written down. Don't believe something just because it's been around for a long time. Another important guide that he gave was don't believe something because others do. That's hearsay evidence, and hearsay evidence isn't admissible in court. Just because somebody's brother told somebody's uncle, who told your uncle, and your uncle told you, doesn't mean that it's true. It just means that people have talked about it for a long time. And the fact that others have forced themselves to believe it doesn't mean that you have to, and it doesn't make it true. Don't believe something because it's based on logical argument. There are lots of ways to argue things to try to prove that they're true. For a long time, logical argument asserted that the solar system was Earth-centric, not heliocentric. And lots of good logical arguments were developed to try to support that theory. Turned out not to be a very good theory, but logical argument was used for centuries to promote that view. So if we can't trust something because it's old, because other people talk about it, because it's been written down, because it's recorded in texts, or because it's supported by logical argument, what can we do? Well, the Buddha was pretty wise. He said, try it out. If it works, if it's good for you, if it makes you more spiritual, fulfills a need within you, then it's good for you. If it doesn't, then try something else. And that's a good way to address life. I like to make decisions based on facts, not wishful thinking. That's the scientist in me, I guess. And shamanism works for me. I've been practicing shamanism since the early 1970s when I was exposed to it in Bolivia. And it's worked for a long, long time for me. It doesn't require that I force myself to believe something that I know ain't true, because I've experienced the truth of the spiritual realm by practicing shamanism. So I invite you to think about practicing a 10,000 or 12,000 year old spiritual tradition. But practice it because it works, not because it's interesting, not because you can read about it in a book, not because I told you so. Practice it for real and learn for yourself. That's the only way we should adopt spiritual practices. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Please stay healthy and stay well.